So here we are asking a question, is it ever right to break the rules if the rules themselves are breaking the country? And in Federalist number 40 here, James Madison is defending the Constitutional Convention against accusations from anti-federalists that the convention exceeded its authority. And Madison's argument is as relevant now as it was in 1788. And when you've got a system collapsing, the duty of patriots is not to obey its failure, but instead it's to repair it. I'm Matt Haskell. I'm a high school history and civics teacher, and we're making this journey through all the 85 of the Federalist Papers together. We're up to number 40, and we're back with James Madison. And as we kind of set the stage here, we need to look at, by this point in the ratification debate, the anti-federalists were attacking the Constitution largely on procedural grounds. The anti-federalists are arguing that the delegates in Philadelphia were only sent there to amend the Articles of Confederation. They weren't meant to scrap the whole thing and start brand new. And Madison, he'll concede part of their claim. He said, yeah, the convention began under those conditions. But then he asks the question that really changes everything. What if amending a broken system isn't enough to save it? So Madison's thesis here is pretty simple. It's basically that the powers of the convention ought to be judged by the measure of their necessity. So he's arguing that when the articles were basically beyond repair, the delegates had a moral duty to propose something better. And they didn't act as rebels against authority, but instead they're acting as representatives of the people. And they are guided by necessity and reason and responsibility. So Madison draws this a crucial distinction between legal authority and legitimate authority. And the framers' legitimacy, he says, came not from Congress, but it came from the people who are truly sovereign. They're the ones that are sovereign. And he writes, the people themselves, in their collective capacity, are superior to all forms which they have chosen to administer their government. So if the people are the source of power, then they can always reorganize their government to secure their rights. That's not rebellion, that's in effect renewal. And so Madison reminds readers of the essay that the convention was facing a bankrupt treasury, unpaid soldiers, foreign threats, and then rivalries developing amongst the states. And so the Articles of Confederation had effectively paralyzed this union. A government that could neither raise revenue nor could it enforce its own laws. So simply amending that structure, according to Madison, would have been like patching a sail when the ship itself was sinking. Now, Madison goes on to insist that the framers didn't act recklessly. They exceeded the letter of their instructions only to preserve its spirit, which was the survival of the Union itself. And again, he writes, a rigid adherence to forms would never render nominal powers altogether nugatory, which, if we want to translate that, strict obedience to broken rules can destroy their very purpose, the very purpose that those rules were meant to serve. And so the framers were not acting out of ambition, but instead it was out of necessity. And that necessity was, to make the government actually workable again. So tightening down Madison's logic here with his chain of reasoning here in our 5 easy steps, the convention was called to fix a failing system, which was the Articles of Confederation. And when they go into the session, they realize that the system is beyond repair. Then the delegates representing the people had the right to propose a new government. And their authority came from necessity and legitimacy, not from a technicality. And so the Constitution's success vindicates the actions of the framers. So there's Federalist number 40, 5 easy steps. Madison's essay is about moral courage, the willing to act when legality and legitimacy kind of diverge. The framers weren't anarchists. They respected order, but they respected the purpose of order even more, and that was to secure the safety and happiness of the people. And when the forms of government fail that end, the people have the right to start over. And so Madison's argument still resonates today for us, because whenever you see reform meeting resistance, you have institutions that decay, you have laws that become outdated, and you have systems that once worked, they stop working. And so Madison's message would be, loyalty to principle sometimes means challenging procedure. And the highest patriotism is not obedience, it's actually, it's more like stewardship. So our takeaways today from this are, one, the Constitutional Convention acted beyond its formal mandate, and rightly so. Our second point would be that the ultimate authority in a republic belongs to the people, not the forms. And then finally, saving a nation sometimes requires the courage to reimagine it. Federalist number 40 is Madison's defense of necessary disobedience. He's telling America that laws and governments exist to serve liberty, not the other way around. And the framers didn't betray their trust. They fulfilled it by giving the nation not just reform, but also a rebirth. And I'm Matt Hasquin. I talk about things I believe we should all just know by being alive. If this episode, hey, if it helped you see why, courage sometimes means rewriting the rules, give me a share or follow, repost this thing, and join me tomorrow because I'll be tackling Federalist number 41. And this is where Madison comes back and he's going to explore the specific powers of the federal government and then also how strength, when properly defined, actually protects freedom. Thanks for hanging around for this one, and I'll see you on the next one.